renowned experts together on the system that you co-create together, right? Or the dance, the negative dance you co-create together when you feel disconnected.
I think, I mean, and it's taken us years to figure out that dance. We've been in and out of therapy. We've had different therapists over the years. And I think that now we're 9 years. We're 9 years into our marriage. And I feel like we're just now starting. I say fight better. We fight better. Like we now do not hold as long of grudges, or we realize like, yeah, I blew up and I can apologize faster. Or yes, I see we're in that negative cycle right now. And then we try to get out of it faster. But can we go in talking about like, why does that even start? Like, why do couples?
Yeah, that's great. Like, so we start at the very beginning in a way, right? So I know I mentioned attachment theory, right? And so here's just, the most famous quote about attachment theory is, we're all subject to the needs of attachment, which basically means the need to be emotionally bonded from the cradle to the grave. And so if you think about it from the cradle part, and, as I was telling you before we started recording, I've got 2 little kids. You got 3 kids, right? Many of your listeners have kids. It's not very hard to understand the need for emotional bonding from the cradle part, right? That if when you were born, right, and imagine, a human being that was born 100,000 years ago in the grasslands, and let's say they, like their primary caregiver, their mother, was not there for them. They're not just facing some inconvenience or discomfort, right? They're facing the possibility of an existential threat. They will die.
Yeah.
Right. That baby's at risk. And so their entire body is set up to protest the unavailability of their primary attachment figure. It's hardwired into who we are. Now, typically in relationship, one person is better at protesting, they feel more the pain of the "are you there for me" trigger, right? Like the question mark, they have this question mark, "are you there for me?" And variations of that. Am I a priority to you? Do I matter to you? Are you even hearing me? Am I special to you? Do you still want me? And so anytime it looks like the answer is no to that question, it's going to hit something really deep inside them, even if they don't know it themselves consciously. And then because it hurts so much and it's so scary, right, to the essence, the core of who we are, our limbic system, then there's going to be some strategy to not feel that way. Now, that means they may now blame, criticize, give the other person advice, shut down, pull away. But whatever you do add a strategy to get away from hurting deep down inside because it looks like your partner's not there for you, it's probably going to trigger the other half of wounding in love. And so let me explain what that tip, and this is a gross oversimplification, but let's say again, there's another baby and is born 100,000 years ago in the grasslands. And mom was there on the other side of their birth. So luckily now they're like, okay, thank God they're here. It looks like they're not actually going to leave me alone so a dingo could eat me. Okay. So I don't have to cry out that they're not here. But over time, they start getting the message that mom looks at them, or their primary caregiver, looks at them like, oh my God, you're a disappointment. Have you seen the other kids, the way they are with their mother? They listen. They prioritize their mother. They come home from work on time. Have you seen Joey bought Diana a lovely ring last week? What do I get? So they're now, that baby's facing the pain, which is also an existential threat of being rejected. And so they're going to protest that. How are they going to protest it? Maybe they shut down. Maybe they turn inwards. Maybe they freeze inside. Maybe they get defensive. But they're going to protest because it really, really hurts when it looks like you're not good enough for your primary attachment figure, right? So let's just for a moment. So let's put those 2 babies together. In every relationship, right, 80% of relationship, those 2 babies marry each other, or they get into a long-term significant relationship with each other, right? Where someone was baby number 1, I have a little vulnerable spot inside me of, are you there for me? Where are you? But of course, when I asked the question, are you there? All I managed to do, even if I wasn't intending it, is tell the little baby in you, that you're being rejected. And then, of course, the little baby in you is now hurting. And now you're going to protest that by defending yourself or pulling away from me even more, which then retells the baby in me, yeah, he really isn't there or she really isn't there. And so now you're going to double down in your protest and say, look, clearly you didn't get it the first time. Why don't you show up, Mr. or Mrs. Failure Pants? And of course, that's going to hurt the little baby and your partner even more, make them feel more rejected, more powerless. And now they will double down on pulling away from you or actually getting defensive. And on and on and on it goes. Reaffirming your worst stories about each other when really it's this terrible tragedy that there were two little beautiful, adorable little creatures inside of both of you that both got scared because you felt disconnected from each other. And being connected to each other is the most important thing in the entire world. It's the foundation on which everything else in your life is built on. No wonder you would get stuck like this.
Wow. That was like, you just painted that beautifully.
Thank you. I know it's a lot of words, so
no, but you know, it's funny because with all of us experiencing being a couple and going through cycles and we both have our own attachment. I have attachment wounds and the wounds that I've carried from my childhood, and the way you painted that is just fantastic, and it's great because for us, you know, being just aware of that has helped us so much more, especially in dealing with our children, you know, and being parents that we don't want to continue that cycle, and we want to help our kids be more attached so they don't have to go through some of the pain that we've both gone through, you know, in their relationships.
That's beautiful. Absolutely. Right. I love that. Right. You know, one of the things, well, let me tell you what that just brings up for me in my work, if it's okay, is that like sometimes I think I must be crazy. You know, if I see 20 couples in a week, let's say, and at this stage, that would be the most me face-to-face time with couples I can do, because it's really, really demanding work. And sometimes I feel like what I do is I run into 20 burning buildings a week.
Yeah.
Right? And when I get into the burning building, by the way, so there's some couple in the burning building, and I go like, come here, I know exactly the way out of this. And one or both of them are saying, no, I'm not going. In fact, I'm staying, and I'm going to tell you more about why it makes sense that I'm lighting fire to this building. And the other person goes, yeah, oh yeah, well, let me get the gasoline too. Right. And so like, and then I stay with them and try and convince them, look, everything's okay. You really just love each other. It's just a system. Can you have some empathy for each other, and then like, you know, repair with each other. Right. So sometimes I wonder, why do I really do that? And for me, it's for the kids. Now, remember, it's not just the kids that are living in your household that you actually, you know, gave birth to, but it's the little kids inside you.
Yeah.
But when it's real, like, look, if a couple comes to see me and they have kids and they're like doing everything they can to convince me that the other person is terrible, well, I know who I'm doing the work for. It's not those two that are acting out right now, because I know that's not who they really are. That's just what they do when they're threatened. And if they have kids in their house or there's kids inside them, I am going to do absolutely everything I can to help them.
So when you get in session, because I'm totally flashing back right now to like maybe year 2 or 3 of our marriage, and we were in therapy, and I was like that wife that just wanted to tell the therapist like every bad thing he was doing and how he was pushing me away or how he was depressing me or all these things. I just wanted to just spew my hurt. And she was like, okay. She was like, those are all surface issues. That's all surface. And I was like, no, it's not. Like, this is not surface. This is the axis of my pain. And it's like, how do you deal with that? Like as a therapist, but also in a relationship, what do you do with all of that pain that we cause each other because we're these hurt children inside?
Right. So again, so just to go, well, what do you do with each other? It takes both of you typically, because we have to be able to see that we're in a system, right? And this is what's really frustrating, right? If you just really break down what I just said, we have to see we are in a system. The work starts after we've started fighting. Like most people want to work on their relationship and how do we make sure we do not fight or we do not struggle. And I actually think that's a waste of time. Like when I say a waste of time, like look, by all means, buy some flowers, go out for dinner, go swim in the ocean if you live in San Diego, right? Like
Yeah.
do those things together, right? But really the rubber's going to meet the road on your ability to go from disconnected back to connected. And the first step along the way is it's not like disconnected back to, oh, everything is amazing. We got to go from disconnected back to neutral. Disconnected back to we're connected, but we're connected in the pain we're both in together because we're disconnected from each other. So it's a weird, so there's this first step that couples have to make. And it's not the step that people want to make, right? And people want to go from bad back to good, but we can't do that. We have to go from bad, where we're in a cycle and we can't see the wood for the trees, to, oh my God, I totally see what we're doing and it really hurts me and it hurts you and we're both hurting and let's hurt together. And then if we can get there, now we have a clear path back to good. Now, let me just to answer your question though, how do you handle it? So here's the thing. You remember I said earlier, and this is a little thing that I really love that I came up with, and I hope someone gets it. Is remember I said like if I'm invited in, like this is what I try and get people to do, and like they come to see me, they've invited me in, right? But if I meet someone out in the street and I see some couple fighting, right, I have no right to be telling them what's going on or like I haven't been invited. I have no right to be giving them some guidance or reframes of what's happening. And so I always think of it like as a therapist, you're like a vampire, right? Where you're not allowed in someone's house. You know the vampire mythology, right? You can't actually cross the threshold of their house unless you've been invited in. Now, when a couple first comes to see me, I have not really, on one hand, I'm invited in because they've come into my office and they want me to help them. But I don't have a right yet to really explicitly reframe their reactivity. So if someone comes to see me and they're really in the story of that husband of mine, I tell you, Fig, Sam, you wouldn't believe it. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reflect back exactly what you told me. I'm going to let you know I'm totally with you, Sam. Yeah. Right. And I'm going to accept what you're telling me is true. And I'm going to validate you. You're like, are you kidding me? If he was out surfing all day and you were at home with the kids, I'd be upset too. Right? I'm not going to contradict anything you say. And by the way, it's not just a strategy because everybody always makes sense. People always make sense. They're like, and one person making sense does not invalidate the other person. Both, and this is what makes relationships so hard. Both people's pain and stories make sense. So before we can start offering someone, oh, there's a deeper issue going on, or like, oh, you're really just hurting. Like I have to earn the right to do that. And how do I earn the right to do that? I make sure the part of you that's really reactive knows I accept you and you have every right to be here. And if I do that well enough, then the part of you that's reactive is like, okay, fine, I've felt heard. Now I might be available to understand something deeper that's going on.
Right. So what I hear you saying that I think that couples need to do more of is the empathy part, like having empathy for not only my pain, but his. And when you start doing this kind of work, then realizing what is it that I triggered in him, or what maybe I didn't even do it intentionally. That actually did happen recently. I said something, and maybe this is the part we can go into where we use our real life example of, we were so connected one day, or like, I think it was not one day, but it was like, I just remember having such a great weekend. We were connected. And I said something just kind of off the cuff that I thought was just really kind of cute and funny. And it just triggered his feeling of insignificance and not being good enough. And I had no clue. And for like 2 days, he held that in and kind of was giving me like, I think he was kind of stonewalling me at that time, which is, in therapy, we talk about that being like building up walls and just not allowing that other person to penetrate those walls. But I had no clue that to me, I was being playful and fun. And because I was in a joyful place of connection with him, but to him, he took that as something that was a wound that, I touched on. And so I don't know if you see a lot of couples that kind of feel like, I have no clue, but this, I triggered his inner wounded child and I had no clue.
Sure. Yeah. Well, Sam, is there more you want to say about that, or I'm happy.
No,
do you want to say something?
I think it was, and what I think it is too, there, as with, from my research too, there's always one individual in the relationship that is like the emotional withdrawer, or the one that doesn't always know how to express what they're really feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's me in our relationship. I am a 1 on the Enneagram, and what happens is, for me, I don't always know how to tap into exactly how I'm feeling at that moment.
Right.
And I'm a guy, so that doesn't help.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's something, as we continue on and we learn how to better come to that neutral spot. And that was another thing, I was going to bring up is, I think too, now that we're parents with children, when we do get into conflict, we have to get back to neutral far sooner.
Right. Absolutely.
That's something that I was going to ask is, like, when you are working with couples, do you find couples that have children, do they get to the point or get back to neutral faster than other couples?
Yeah, well, let me do. This is great. You guys are so good. The questions are so good. Well, let me take the couple one at a time, right?
Yeah.
So here's the first thing that's really important, and this is especially important for the time we live in, right? Impact is more important than intention. Right. Let's imagine just like you were saying, right? Let's say I'm just having a great old time and I'm being lighthearted and I tell a joke that touches a raw spot in you.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, my intention is relevant. Don't get me wrong, but it's not relevant right now, right? What's more relevant right now is the impact, right? And sometimes I make up a silly story to explain this to people. Is like imagine after this podcast, I'm rushing to go home to pick up my kids from their summer camp. And on my way home, of course, because I'm in such a rush, I knock someone over with my car and they're lying on the ground with a broken leg. And I jump out of my car and I stand over them with their broken leg, right? And I say to them, I didn't mean it. Not relevant, right?
Yes, right.
What's relevant is, can I friggin' help, stem the bleeding and call 911 and comfort them? And if I do that well enough, if I can attend to my impact, regardless of my intention, in 2 or 3 weeks from now, I can go to their home or go to their hospital bed with flowers and chocolate. And I may have earned the right to go, hey, by the way, if you're interested, but I'm not going to burden you with it. And this is what was going on for me that happened. But again, so look, and again, we're learning this the hard way, right? In many aspects of our society right now, we got to pay more attention to the impact we have than the intention, right? And that's what and it's going to be really hard in relationship because most of us, right, do not have the exact same flavor of wounding.
Right.
Yeah.
So another way, an analogy or little story I come up with to explain this, imagine it's like you both have guns in your pocket. And I don't mean that in the Mae West. This is a PG show, right? But just imagine you have guns in your pocket, right? And when you, Chrissy, take out that gun out of your pocket, and let's say you accidentally fire it and it shoots a bullet into your toe, the bullets that come out of your gun are just little tickles. So you're like, oh, that's nothing. And you just dust your little toe off because it got a little tickle. But those exact same bullets out of your gun, when they actually are pointed, when they're pointed at Sam's chest, it leaves a gaping hole, right? And so it's really confusing, right? It's like, what in the name of God? Like, here, look, I'm firing this bullet. Someone said that to me, it would mean nothing. Right. And then, like, for you, you're devastated. So you both, and this is what happens all the time, and this is why it's so important to understand the system, is we fire bullets that we have no idea ourselves they'd be bullets because it wouldn't have hurt me. But again, if you marry that with, but look, impact is more important. And then what happens when something I did and said impacts my partner? Because I am their primary attachment figure. I am the person most in the world they turn to know they're loved, they're cared for, they're enough, they're a priority. It's going to really hurt. They're going to react, whether they do quote unquote stonewalling, they shut down. It's not even a conscious choice. And then, of course, now it's probably going to, Chrissy, touch your like, oh, there he is. He's off. Now
Yep.
you're hurting. And now you're going to, even if you're doing the very best, right? Now you'll probably have more questions. You'll let out a sigh, right? Which will further signal, see, yep, not enough again, or and you're going to get stuck. And so the cycle, the dance, is always a retroactive diagnosis, right? So the work starts now. Here we were getting along, everything was great, and lo and behold, despite both of our best intentions, we have gotten into a cycle. We just spend certain, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 5 hours, 5 weeks, not even being able to see we're in a cycle. But now we get it, and I can see how I got hurt and I was reactive, and it hurt you and you were reactive, and we got stuck together. So if we want to get to empathy, and this is the thing, empathy is the order of things kind of matters, right? Empathy is like later. It's an early part of the process. It's in the end of the first stage of the process, but there are a couple of things we have to be able to do first to have empathy. And the first thing is see that we're both stuck. It's not just me or you. No, you're not the bad guy. I'm not the bad guy. We both just got stuck, regardless of who got hurt first or who hurt who first. Then we have to be able to see that the only reason you're acting the way you are is because you're hurting inside. And the only reason I'm acting the way I am is because I'm hurting inside. And then I can actually now get, even though at first I could only see what you were doing, how it was bad, I now can see how I've been participating in this cycle. And I get the impact it has on you. Now, when you mush up those three things together, it's both of us, and we're hurting because we love each other. And I actually really understand what I did and the impact it had on you. When two people have all three of those together in one shared, coherent emotional experience, that's where empathy is born. And then empathy, from there, that empathic experience, now we can have compassion. Now we could actually share our vulnerable feelings with each other and actually love, comfort, and soothe each other.
Wow. So it's almost like empathy is kind of like a fire hydrant, like, just kind of squashing. I mean, it's not stopping the fight per se, but it's like, I feel like maybe pausing it a little bit so that you can keep or stop hurting each other. Because sometimes I feel like we get in these cycles where we both are hurt, and then in the fighting we end up hurting each other more with, like, throwing words and arrows that we don't even mean, and then we furthermore get into the cycle. So you're saying empathy, just stopping, saying we're in a cycle, this is us, not me and you, not me versus you, and we need to both, like, kind of push that pause button and look at what the cycle is.
Well, and I wouldn't even, it's literally a state change, right? We're looking for a state change, right? At first we're just trying to get it cognitively, but we want an actual biological state change, right? Physiological state change to happen, where, and here's one of the ways, another, like, this might be helpful, is we want to go from two separate suffering bubbles to one shared suffering bubble. And so look, here's what happens, right? When I'm fighting with my wife, right, we're struggling, I'm in a suffering bubble where all I know is I feel really terrible and she did it to me, right? And she's like, I feel terrible and he did it to me. So we're both in two separate suffering bubbles. And like little kids' bubbles, you blow the bubbles. And like when two of the bubbles come together, 99% of the time the bubbles come together and they both burst. But have you ever noticed this? Every now and again, two bubbles come together, and instead of bursting, they share one larger bubble. That's what we need to do, right? And this is so weird. This is what makes, like, I always tell people to come to see me, the way to a better relationship is paradoxical, right? It's great for me because people, because I'll always have a good business as long as people try and love each other, right? Because the things that people naturally do to try and make things better usually make things worse. Right. So
Oh,
If
100%.
Can you speak to that? What are some things that people are doing wrong in their relationship?
well, let me just finish the one thing about. So if you're in one shared suffering bubble, now it's we are hurting. It's not just I'm hurting or you're hurt, right? It's we are hurting. So that's that key first place we have to get to.
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of what do people do wrong that keeps relationships going badly? So let's just stay with these two characters we've developed, and it sounds like they fit you guys pretty well. So hopefully I won't insult anyone, right? Because it can feel a little cookie cutter on one level, but let's just say there's one predominant narrative out there where there are and look, let's be clear, in a heterosexual relationship typically it's a woman, not always, right? But but there's one person that is the emotional pursuer, and they don't feel prioritized, they don't feel special, their partner would rather play golf, or they work till 8 p.m. at night. What were they thinking? They said they'd come home early. Even when they're at home, they're daydreaming, right? Like, what in the name of God is this all about, right? And so they are the good one in the relationship, and they're hurting. They're the one that tries, and the partner does nothing in their worst moments. That's how they feel, right? And then they go and they tell their friends, and their friends are like, yeah, that's what it's like for me too. And then they read Cosmopolitan, or they go to like a women's empowerment workshop, and they find out you're a queen and you deserve more love. And so it just compounds and compounds this story, which and they go to their therapist, individual therapist, and the individual therapist tells them, I don't know how you put up with it. You're so wonderful. So now they go back to that partner or spouse, right? And they say, I deserve more love than this. Everyone agrees with me, right?
Yeah.
Like, so all of the things they do, they criticize their partner. They ask for their partner to change. And they are constantly like actually protesting being disconnected. And this is what's so tragic. There is a person inside them that's really hurting and longing to be loved. And that's a beautiful, lovable part of them. But the narrative they're living in and the things they do with that narrative actually are making things worse. Everything they do, everything they say is telling their partner, you're not enough for me. You're a disappointment for me. When are you going to get your act together and show up? And look, imagine that being said to a little kid. Imagine your child went up to their math teacher and said, here's my homework. And the math teacher looked at it and goes, for flip's sake. Are you kidding me? This is what you call trying? Like, who's going to be motivated to try and do their math homework tomorrow? No way. Right. So look, one of the ways I put it, there's an apartment building, right, where couples come to see me, and one member of the apartment building lives in the penthouse because they're the one that tries and they're the ones not prioritized, and they are very good. And their partner, their spouse, lives in the basement. They are the crap spouse, right? They live in the janitor's section because they're so crap at loving, right? They can't access their feelings. They don't know how to describe them. They don't show up. And so that's not going to work, right? So here's what we need to do. We need to create a well-appointed apartment in the middle of the building where both of them could live in together. So here's the irony. When people start couples counseling, usually it's the emotional pursuer that thinks, I've got this emotional stuff down. I'm going to be the good one at couples counseling. But just imagine if that analogy is true. It is easier for someone to be open to moving from the janitor's quarters to the middle of this, beautiful luxury apartment building than it is from someone to change their view of what's happening and move from the penthouse down to a well-appointed apartment in the middle of the building, right? So all those things we do to protest when we don't feel prioritized, we think they're cans of water that we're throwing on the fire of our disconnection, but they're really, that can was mislabeled. It's full of gasoline, and you were misinformed and misadvised. Now, the other side of that, right? Like, so here's the other side, just to be totally fair, because I know you've got some listeners now that are saying, don't you ever have figs on again. He just he insulted all my friends, right? So look, don't tell them where I live, okay, please. Okay, so come here. Here's to be fair to the other side of that, right? Now, the other side of that, there's someone in relationship where they are very logical. And they're very, very happy about just how unemotional they are and rational they are. But all they manage to do with their absolute insistence on, hey, calm down, let's just solve a problem here, is they keep telling their partner, you're too much, right? Which again, how painful is that to hear you're too much, right? And they send a signal your feelings don't really matter. Other things are more important. Finding the solution is more important to you and how you feel, right? And really, when are you going to get your act together and stop just complaining and moaning, right? And come here, I can't think of a more painful message to be sending someone who really loves you. The other thing that person may do is they will look like they're unavailable. And even if unintentionally, remember, impact is more important than intention. They may look when their partner, their significant other is hurting, they're going to look that they've like got a still face, or they look like they've the face, they have the access to emotions of a stone.
Yeah.
And in matters of love, it hurts just as much when it looks like your partner is absent as it would if it looks like your partner is angry or upset with you. So if you are looking emotionally absent from your partner and you hold your hands up like a soccer player that just kicked someone and then just go, "What, ref? I didn't do anything. What did I do?" That's not true. You did something. You did something, right? Even if you didn't intend it, the impact when you look like you're not emotionally engaged is devastating for your partner. So look, if you go on to Joe Rogan and you get to listen to him and listen to other men talk about, the death of masculinity or whatever it is, and how we need a return to logic, you need to get your act together too and start listening to that trash, because you cannot be a cold as a stone, unemotional, using logic to solve the issues in your relationship. You've got to both work on this together.
I love that, because I recently said this to a friend. I'm like, I don't know how any marriage works if you're not doing the work. And Sam and I say that all the time, because we feel like we're doing this work in our life to become more intellectually or emotionally intellectual people. We're trying to raise emotionally intellectual children, and we are trying to do that ourselves. We're in this, season of life of reparenting our childhood wounds, and also trying to become better people, regardless of our genders, because of our marriage, because we want to be in a better relationship. So I love that you said that. Like, stop listening to that garbage. You need to be emotionally available for your spouse.
And I think, see, I'm 41, and I grew up in kind of the age before the internet. And I grew up in I would say more of a very masculine trade. I build houses, so I work with a lot of the stereotypical big dudes. But as I've gotten older, like, I definitely have seen how that mentality will never serve our relationship, and it will never serve the relationship that I want to have with our kids. Absolutely. Because that is something, that I want to instill, that it's okay to be emotionally available for our kids, and that if they have emotions, it's okay to feel that. Whenever I see another dad be like, "Oh, boys don't cry," I just makes me cringe, because I'm like, no, you want them to express that, so that they don't, at 20 years old or 30 years old, they're not like screwing up their own relationships because they can't express that hurt or what they're feeling.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that is, and that's, it's very hard, because growing up in the culture that we live in, especially now, it seems, that it's never okay. Like, it's hard finding that balance of being like, both a strong figure for our boys and for my daughter, but also being emotionally available to them and being sensitive to them.
Yeah, we could do a whole podcast episode.
Exactly. Yeah, well, look, it's just beautiful, Sam, that even these are these are things that you hold inside you and that you're trying to do. And I love, again, Chrissy, the way you say, like, reparent yourself. One of my favorite ways to put this is can I be the one that I needed back then that wasn't there?
Oh, yeah.
You know, and if I do that well, so like actually being a loving, caring presence for the vulnerable part inside myself and letting myself have those feelings, then I can be the one that my spouse or significant other and my children deserve. And it sounds like you're really doing a wonderful job, but like, you know, you're in it and you're trying to do it. And again, nobody, again, to go back to the very first thing you said, not even therapists, not even quote unquote relationship experts, do it right. The only way I do it right is 90% of the time it's after I did it wrong and I recorrect course.
Yes. You learn more from your mistakes and your failures than your successes.
Yeah, by the way, and that's one of the things, you know, because I try and be a bit of an entrepreneur or whatever, right, with my business, you know, and I learn a lot, like, of this stuff where entrepreneurship, like, applies to relationship. Like, one of the things I love is fail early and often.
Yes.
Right. So I want to notice that I'm failing in my relationship, that I've gotten in a cycle early so I can correct course. Right. Yeah. Anyway.
That just we'll wrap up soon, but I wanted to say that reminded me of our first year of marriage. We were already in couples therapy, and I just thought our marriage is doomed. Like, we are already having issues. I can't believe this. Maybe I married the wrong guy. And then our therapist said, you know, like, that this is normal. Like, that, yeah, there is a honeymoon phase, and some people don't, you know, fight until maybe 7 years down the line. But she said, this is like, you guys are doing some major work right now. And she just reframed it for me that what we were experiencing was normal, and that it did not mean that I married the wrong person, but it was in fact like, wow, we're learning like how to be married. And, you know, it was a rough, rocky start, but it definitely, now in hindsight, I feel like helped us learn how to be married to each other. So I'm really glad that I stuck with you.
And throw 3 kids in there, and it's like,
God. Yeah. Kids will help you, will humble you, like, for sure, right? In terms of any notions of having, you know, your relationship stuff together, right? It makes it a million times. You're going to get triggered a million more times a year, right? Can I just say, Chrissy, just one last thing about what you just said? I would say not only is it normal, but I would say there's two, in my opinion, there's 2 good reasons to get married, right? Of course, it's just my opinion, right? One is have babies, right? Mm-hmm. Well done, right? And the other one is do this work.
Yes.
And do this work. And this work is because you have wounded places inside you. And those wounded places have missing experiences and they want to complete. And I would say the reason you actually picked each other, even if at first you thought it's because Sam was an amazing break dancer, and Sam, you thought you picked Chrissy because of her, like, you know, moonwalk, right? Like, I would say something else. Now, this is the one part. Everything I do is pretty scientifically based, right? And so we don't have like solid research on this, but every reason you really chose each other was there was something. The little hurt one inside you said, with this one, I will have a chance to feel that pain again, but maybe I could have a different outcome this time. Yeah. Maybe I could have a longer outcome.
Beautiful.
So good.
Yeah. So this is where, like, when people finally come to see me, you know, you were saying people wait too long. I tell them, like, how long have you been together? They say 15 years. I have been sitting in this office for 15 years waiting till things got bad enough for you so you would finally come to see me. Yeah. I'm so glad you finally arrived to do this work. It's time.
Yeah.
That's a really cool perspective, because I know that when I've told people, like, hey, we go to couples counseling or we go to counseling, it's like a misnomer, like, well, something must be really wrong then. And I'm like, no, we want to do better.
Yeah.
And we want to be better, not just for each other, but for ourselves. And then when you have kids, you know, it's mainly for them.
Right. Yeah. Well, and look, having an hour away, like doing an hour of counseling away from your kids, like talking to another
Oh,
grown up for an hour. Oh my
yeah.
Oh, it's
God.
It
amazing.
was some
Right.
good nights we had. I
That-
mean, some hard ones, but
Yeah.
some really good ones.
Right.
Well, let's wrap it up. I mean, that's such a
Yeah.
beautiful way to put into words of why even get married, because there are parts in you that are wounded that will not come out in any other relationship other than a safe marriage, like
Yeah.
or marriage in general. I
Yeah.
mean,
A
they both
marriage that you're going to get triggered. It's going to
exactly.
bring you to your vulnerability and your worst reactivity. But at first that looks bad, but it's actually the best opportunity of your life.
Right, right. Okay. So I just wanted to close by giving some
Yeah.
people, or our listeners, a couple ways to enhance their relationship right now. Like,
Yeah.
Or
obviously,
give them hope that
yeah, what would
their
you say?
relationship can get better.
What would you say, Figs? Give us some hope. Give our listeners some hope.
Well, look, again, well, hopefully this last part I just said is, look, if you're getting disconnected with each other, it's only happening because you love each other. And the number one thing we need is just a slight shift in perspective, to see that your worst moments are actually your closest. If you could just do the little bit of work to see things slightly differently, you're even closer to being truly connected to each other than you even realize. We need to be attend to it slightly differently than you have been in the past. And then, yeah, like your vulnerability and your willingness to feel it and share it with each other is the way out. Nobody gets out of relationship conflict out of competency. We get out of it by being incompetent and I don't know what to do. But that's where you could actually find each other.
Oh, beautiful. I love that.
We could just keep talking forever.
I think we need to have another episode with you on, and we will go into managing your relationship while focusing on parenting, because that needs to be
Yeah.
a
Oh, yeah. No.
We need like an hour plus an hour plus an hour
yes.
plus an
I,
hour. Once
I might need to bring tissues to that one to cry for
Oh,
myself.
during it, yeah. Or we'll tell everybody where they can find you.
Right. Well, so yeah, okay. So the main place I would invite people to find me is empathy.com, and that's empathy with an I on the end, not a Y on the end.com. The guy wouldn't sell me empathy with a Y on the end, so I had to like just Jimmy rig something. So and it's San Francisco, so we keep changing the spelling of words. So empathy with an I on the end.com. And on that website, you can I have courses, I have a web app I built for couples. So it's like a free quiz and discovery process that you actually engage in together as a couple. And then, of course, you can also book counseling or coaching online or in person. And then the other thing, just like to go back to what we're just talking about, here's the whole mission of empathy. Why, oh, why is relationship help and guidance in the realm of mental health? What I'm really, really trying to do is take the stigma away, take it out of like only people in big cities can access the best guidance, right?
Mhm.
I want to make like really good, effective relationship guidance available for everybody, whether that's through the digital tools, through coaching or counseling, through these like interviews like this. Thank you. And so that's what the empathy mission is.
That's awesome. And if you I went to the website and it's awesome, and I got to watch the web episode with you and your wife.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And
On the repair?
yes, and
Loved
I was
that,
like,
yeah.
this is so cool, like because just to get to hear her perspective and your perspective, and especially since she was she was at 29 weeks, and I was like, man, I remember those days. Like we've been there.
Right. Oh yeah, that was
Several
a
times.
rich relationship fodder while pregnant. Exactly.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for
Thank you.
being here. And I hope we get to have you on again really soon.
I would love that. I'm really honored to be on your show, and yeah, so lovely to talk to both of you.
Awesome.
Well, you
Thanks
guys
so much.
keep up the good work,
Oh, thank you. You
and
too.
yeah, thank you so much for spending time with us. It was awesome.
Awesome. Likewise.
Yay! Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
A great episode. I can tell already.
Oh, good.
I'm going to try to turn it around real quick too, if I can get it edited it up, I will do that and hopefully get it up this week.
And how old are your kids now?
I've got a 2 and a 5.
Oh yeah.
No, I really do want to do an episode with you on the parenting part, because I realized if I asked that, we would go a whole nother probably 45 minutes. So
Exactly. No, exactly. Oh yeah, that's an episode all in itself, and I would be honored to. That would be great. So yeah, just let me know.
Okay.
And so I'll hear from you. And I don't know how you guys do it. I don't know if you have an email list or anything. I don't know if I said this to you. If you guys wanted to make a special offer of my course or anything, I'm very happy to make you guys an affiliate and give you a special code so that if people do buy it, you get
it. Yeah, I've done that with a parenting course before. My friend that I have on for positive parenting. But email me a link.
I'll set you up as an affiliate, and then I'll share with you your link and a code that is just your code to give. So here's how I normally do it. I don't know what you think would be a good. My main signature course is $297, and then what I usually do is offer a discount to your audience, right? So I don't know what we do, like 30% off your audience, and then whatever the rest is, which I think is $200, then we just split 50%, 50-50.
Oh, that's perfect. So I would love to for them.
Yeah. So that's what I'll do, right? I'll just $297. Your audience gets 30% off, and then I'll just make you and then if they use your affiliate link, there's you would basically get 50% of the revenue collected.
Okay, sounds good. Email that to me whenever you get a chance to do that. I'll try. If you do it soon, then I can put it in the outro.
Right.
Because I wanted to get this one up since I have childcare this week. I'm trying to get as much done. Right. So I was like, okay, if I could get this up tomorrow, that'd be great. So
you have the thing that I need, that I most long for right now.
What is that?
Childcare. We're in the scramble without childcare this week.
Like Nana and Papa are in town.
Well, Chrissy's parents are staying with us, so but we feel your pain of feel
it. It's hard
trying to get a babysitter and just it's brutal.
So.
Right. Hey, by the way, I just noticed the time. I have to run. Speaking of parenting responsibilities, but I will email you. Yeah, and I'll email you the affiliate stuff. And I again, really lovely to talk to both of you. And I'm looking forward to doing more.
Okay,
awesome. Thanks, Figs.
Hi. Thanks.
Have a good one.